Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we're going to have a brief look at the Elementary 6 beta. We're going to talk about some of the things that they're doing, and this is a very radical change as it would appear. This has been hinted as far back as August of last year, and so there is quite a little bit of buzz about Elementary 6 coming around. Now, I, of course, have been critical of several elements of Elementary. I don't think it's a horrible distribution, but I think that it has a few little weird philosophy choices that are a little bit odd. And the most critical in the last edition is when you are installing an application from the App Center that was not considered a, quote, curated app. In other words, not an app that was explicitly an Elementary app, it would give you a warning that to many users would frighten you. That warning would be a giant warning. We can't do it. We're not talking weird, obscure apps. We're talking GIMP. We're talking LibreOffice. Applications with a long track record of being safe, being secure, and big players in the FOSS community. And why a lot of those organizations didn't give some pushback to Elementary, I have no earthly idea. So that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at. However, it might be too early to tell. So maybe as they're working on the beta, we can fix a few of these little odds and ends. But other than that, there are a lot of other more interesting and compelling things. We're going to be talking about some positives and some negatives, as I see with the brand new Elementary OS 6 beta, which is now available as of this week. So in their beta, mostly they are gearing this towards app developers so that the app developers can work on getting everything ready, because it does also represent a huge style change. They have changed a lot of their back end, how the style sheets work, how all of the other core functions around the applications work. And so there's a lot in the documentation that's mostly geared towards app developers and to all those other people that are very interested in having a look at the distribution itself. They talk about what is a beta versus early access versus release. The only people who have had early access are the GitHub supporters. The beta is a public beta, and then there will be a release candidate soon. They're talking about some platform changes. The biggest, I hit the button there. The biggest radical change that we're going to see in Elementary is it is going nearly entirely Flatpak. That is one of the positives, because Flatpak is one of the best of the package distribution systems that is kind of unified. Now, this does mean that running an Elementary OS system compared to any other system that's utilizing repositories is going to be a lot harder on the hard disk. So that may or may not matter. If you're running small SSDs, you're going to run into a space problem. If you're running large SSDs or standard spinning Rust, you're probably going to be okay. However, the change to use Flatpaks instead of the Ubuntu's direction of Snap is radically positive. Why? Because while the Snaps and Flatpaks are both open source, Snap only has distribution through the proprietary system, and you really can't sideload things in any other way. Whereas if your system is based on Flatpak, you can control the repositories, you can add repositories, you can remove repositories, you can sideload Flatpak applications into the system, so you have a lot better control over what's going on. So if a distribution is going to move in a direction towards one of the unified packages, Flatpak makes the best logical sense. One on app images, they're probably a little bit better in some respects. Well, because there's not a real good repository way to distribute those, understanding that there are actually a couple of those things out there. However, with this, they have their own repository. You can add to it, you can take out from it, you can add additional things next to it, hopefully. And I believe they're probably going to do it right, so you could do that. So that's really the big thing. LibHandy is here, so this is helping out with more tablet type features, I believe. So you can see a little bit there, multi-touch gestures coming from that. Granite is the GTK companion library. This is again for the app developers, and they're making it easier for app developers to have a more concise and unified thing. And so the curated type apps or the official apps in the Elementary OS software store should have a lot better unity in how everything looks. And that is, for sure, that is a good thing. So they say down here, this is where it is. All App Center apps in Elementary OS 6 and beyond will be built as Flatpaks. I am reading that the way I understand that there will not be anything from the repository in there, which means if it is not a Flatpak and in the Elementary OS store, it will not be available to easily install from the GUI. Obviously, as of now, you can still go into the terminal, you can do your sudo apt install, so there are absolutely ways to install applications, but for those who want things that are not exclusively in the curated Elementary OS application systems, then yeah, you're going to have to do the terminal or install some other software store to manage that if you particularly want a GUI. And this is where I'm like, it's starting to diverge away from a Linux distribution. They're like, we want you to do the system exactly the way we want you to, and we want you to use exactly the apps we want you to. And that's really where they're going, and that's what they've always done, and that's one of the big criticisms I've had, albeit if that's what you want, go for it. That's what you want. Here is information on the style sheet. Oh, the other thing to mention here, they now have a dark theme available out of the box and accent colors. A lot of positive direction in the way of the theming. So you can see here some dark theme there. And other than that, it's going to be pretty much the same except for the installer. And the installer is very nice and very different. And so what I think we would probably like to do is let's go ahead and have a brief look at that installer, and then we can get a chance to see what that guy looks like. So here we are. We're going to boot up the installer, and maybe we're going to boot up the installer. There it is. Had to push an enter button there. So checking the integrity of the ISO image, so that's fine. It says it could take some time, and it's just about 30 seconds. There we have it. We're done. And then it's going to get booted right into it. I do not recall if there was any live key, so I'm not sure if they had that as an option, but we'll go ahead and have a look. I just can't remember, so we'll see. Looks like they're starting a tool to automatically collect and submit kernel crashes. I don't want the system to automatically do anything, so that's interesting. All right, so here we land right on this screen here, and what we're going to do is we're going to collect some information about languages, locations, and then once we walk through all this, then we will have the option to check out the live key just to demo it, or we will have the options to install. So here we have a try a demo mode, we have a clean install, and we have a custom where we can manipulate our system however we want to do it before running it. Clicking on the clean install option and clicking our next, it's going to grab information about our drive. We just need to select which drive we have, erase the drive, and install. Now this is an OEM install, so once you click this button, it is wiping everything out and it is beginning the installation process. And the installation process for me on my virtual machine took about, I'd say, 5 or so minutes. At this point in time, it's going to wipe out what is on this disk, and so I'm not going to click that button. What we're going to do here is I'm going to log into the one that I've already installed. All right, so here we've landed on the screen here to log in. So we have our very nice, elegant, easy to read, easy to understand login screen for Elementary. So we're going to go ahead and boot on in. Now, if you've not been on Elementary before, this uses the Pantheon desktop. It is a custom desktop built for this particular distribution. You can get the Pantheon desktop in a few other distributions now. I think Fedora has it, and I think it might be on like Arch or something as well. I can't remember. So this is the early access, or it's the beta, and so it's giving us a few things. Number one, curated apps are not available. So the only apps available in the Software Center are going to be the apps that are available that are already pre-installed. There's nothing else in there. Now, again, the way I'm reading it, the only thing that will be in there is Flatpaks, and it will only be the curated ones. So if you want to use something like GIMP, unless it's in there as a Flatpak, it may not be in there. But we'll see. That is something that we'll have to check when it comes out. Hint, hint, make sure the main free and open source applications are there without scary warnings so that you don't turn people away from your distribution. There are unfinished visual styles, so we'll keep them ahead of that, and some features may be missing or incomplete. This is, I will remind you again, a radical departure from the way they have run it. Here's our What's New section. There's a link to the blog post, and then you can open up your system settings there. Now, there was a first run screen. Mostly the first run screen was to come over here into your dock and where was it? Appearance over here. And this is where you can choose your light or your dark theme. You can set your sunset to sunrise for light and dark, and then you have a variety of accent colors that you can choose from as well. They don't look all that sharp on the dark mode, I gotta say, but let's see what the light mode looks like. Yeah, light mode looks a little bit better than the dark mode, but I think most distributions, when you jump to a dark mode, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. That's okay. Of course, the dock and panel settings. They've changed this term to multitasking. It might have been called hot corners. I forget what it used to be called, but they've just went ahead and changed the name of that. Other options inside of here, we just have our basic system administration. And this was one of the best systems that had good parental controls on it. And I think they're still here. I just don't think they're right in the front. I've covered that in the past, and maybe they're just not in the beta at this point in time. So let's go ahead and close that out. It is alerting us to an update. What is this, Arch? I just updated it an hour or two ago. So you can come over here. Here's the what is installed. It'll tell us what we have an update for. We can install the VirtualBox drivers here if we want to. It's hunting for those. It's like, ooh, there's drivers you can install. That's actually a really cool feature that I don't have to go to some extra driver utility to check. So the fact that they're giving us some options for drivers is a really good thing. I like that. All of a sudden there's more updates. And that does make sense because we are on a development edition right now. But if you go in and have a look at what's in the software store, you'll see there's nothing in there that's not already pre-installed on the system. Oh, one more thing that was in the notes while I'm seeing the mail, rather than relying on Geary mail as they have in the past, they're now actually relying on the Gnomes and Evolution's backend system because this is going to give a lot more functionality to multiple different ways and means of checking email. That is a really positive thing to be moving in a different direction. Not to say they're using Evolution per se, just the backend Evolution data server. And so that's really good. Now I did go ahead and double check and test, can you install other applications through sudo apt in the terminal? And yes, you can. Here's VLC. See, it doesn't look quite as unified with the rest of the system, but nevertheless, we do have it there. And I thought we had the dark mode on, and so you can see that the externally installed applications don't follow the theming, which kind of makes sense, but a lot of distributions do have ways of matching those systems together. So there is really what we have inside of here. So far, it looks pretty good. One more thing I want to do real quick is I want to show you guys the Flatpaks that are installed already. And so here you can see that the elementary platform, elementary developers platform, calculator, GNOME Web, and events, these are all installed as Flatpaks already. And so that's really the direction. Let's see if Snap is installed. No, Snap is not even installed on the system at this point. Again, you can install anything from the Ubuntu repositories with apt here, but I'm not sure if we'll expect to see those in the software store or not. So there we have Elementary 6 beta. So far, what I'm seeing, the style is really good. It does look a little bit better than it has in the past. It's coming along very nicely. They are doing a good thing in that with the stylistic changes, just keeping everything unified. I do worry about the extra apps available, and for me, that is a little bit of a concern because if major, well-known, popular Linux FOSS apps in the FOSS sphere are not available or have scary warnings, that is a problem. So it's yet to be seen if those are going to be in the store at all, or if they're going to be in the store and have warnings, or if you just have to install them with the terminal. That's going to be an interesting thing to see as we go through and watch the development. Again, a lot of the changes here are kind of back-end things. If you're an app developer, of course, then you want to start working with that Granite build, the GTK Granite libraries, and this is going to help you get a more unified system with the way they have their software installed. But overall, they are accomplishing their task of having something that's really hard to break. Unfortunately, that does limit what you can do with the system. So Elementary is either for you or not for you. There's not a whole lot of middle ground on it. For me, it's not my particular distribution of choice. There's just too many little things with it that kind of drive me nuts. But I'm not saying it's a bad distribution. It's just, it doesn't jive with my particular workflow. So there's kind of my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.